Welcome to IBTimesTV. I have a very special guest here with me today. Former Treasurer of the United States, political pundit, and mother of three, Bay Buchanan is here to share her book, Bay and Her Boys, Unexpected Lessons I Learned as a Single Mom. In the book, she opens up about her painful divorce and how she still managed to successfully raise three boys all by herself. Welcome, Bay. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure entirely. Just glad to be here.
I noticed in the book you're very candid and so honest with these very personal and emotional things that happened to you. Why did you decide to write the book, and what do you want to accomplish with this?
You know, when I was raising those children, I became a single mom when I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and I was pregnant with my third son. I went through, some difficult times, and I had been raised in a large Catholic Irish family, and I loved my childhood. I thought I just had the greatest home life that you could imagine. But I knew my dad played such an important role in that, and here I was raising 3 boys without a dad, and I was devastated. And I thought, how can I give these kids the same kind of life that I had, the same kind of wonderful childhood that really gave me a sense of security and all. And I was disturbed by that as well as everything else going on around me. And then as I went along, I really decided, how was I going to do this? I realized that the message coming from my friends on the conservative side was a glass half full, in the sense that, or half empty for me, in the sense that they were out there looking at statistics and reports that proved once again how important it was to have a dad in the home. And I had no argument with that. I knew it was important, and I certainly had that experience myself. But what was the message for those of us where that wasn't an option? And they would go out and say, it's 4 times more likely they're going to fail in school, and 5 times more likely they're going to get abused drugs, and this time is more likely that they're going to end up incarcerated or problems with the law. And I thought, my golly, this is terrible. What am I going to do? But there was no one saying, listen, but you can do it. Here's the way. Here's some ideas. Here's some guidance. There's how you can compensate for the fact that your kids don't have a dad in their home, and to give them the lessons that the other children are learning, which allowed them to thrive, and so that your kids can succeed. And this went on year after year. They'd keep coming up, new report, new pundit out there saying the same thing. And I felt such I felt so upset that there's so many of us out there trying to do this well, and single moms love their children as much as married moms, and we want them to succeed, and we're willing to sacrifice. But we need somebody to say, you can do it.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I know it might not be best. You might not think it's best. It might have been something you never expected or ever wanted. It doesn't matter. Whatever happened in the past. And that's a point about my book, is I don't care how you become a single mom. The key is, once you become one, once you fall into life as in that world, you got to leave the rest behind. You can't bring the baggage in with you. You can't worry about what happened and what if, and only if I had done that or he did this. It's a done deal. Now you are a single mom, and you cannot fail as a single mom, because your kids are the ones that are at risk here.
In the book, you say that being a mother is the greatest accomplishment. So be honest, what's harder, motherhood or being Treasurer of the United States?
Oh my gosh, there's nothing harder than being a mom, I'll tell you. And being a mom is 24 hours and 7 days a week. Whether you're at work or not, you still are thinking, okay, what happened? Why did that teacher call me? I'm going to have to make an appointment with the teacher. Why is he upset about this? What happened here? You're constantly thinking about your children when you get home. You're involved with them. Your whole life, I think if you really want to be a really good single mom, then the kids are the center of your life. And I find that it's unfortunate that we see so much, especially recently and in the past as well, of trying to divide, to splinter women, mothers in particular, into working at home moms, or at work, working moms, or single moms, or married moms. There's no need to divide us. We have so much in common. As you know, I've written many stories in this book about my kids, some funny incidents, and lessons that I learned as a result of them. And anyone I tell, any parent can give me 3 to match mine. We've all been there. And when you say what it's like being Treasurer of the United States, I debated a gal recently who agreed that motherhood is important, and you do valuable work at home. But in the real world, she kept saying, in the real world of business and professional life, and I said to her, tell me, what is more real than waking up at 2 in the morning with a sick child and trying to see, do I take this baby to the doctors now, to the hospital, or do I call the doctor, or do I wait in the morning? I mean, this is as real as it gets. And so life has many different facets to it. And as a single mom, most of us are working moms. But we also are at-home moms. We just do it in a shorter period of time. So it's very, very, as I said, it is the greatest job I ever did, and the hardest, and the one that you just have all your hopes and dreams in. I mean, careers can wait. Social life can wait. All of that can wait. Your kids can't.
And you never know how important that will be until you become one.
You don't. And you know, I used to always say, I always want to be a mom. I am going to put these kids first. Oh, I can't wait to have children. They're going to be the center of my life. Then I became a single mom, and I realized putting my children first meant a whole lot more than I ever imagined. The sacrifices are there constantly. And when I hear people say, well, you know, at-home moms, or, you know, they don't have the same pressure on them as working moms, you have no idea, at-home moms, the sacrifice they've made. Many of them could be in the professional world, or in careers, or in exciting lives in the private sector, in government work, whatever. They have chosen to be at home. And changing diapers is nothing that gives you a great deal of satisfaction, you know? So they are sacrificing enormously and doing some really tough and good work for their family, and they deserve all the respect as working moms do as well.
Being someone who's now coming into my late 20s, and this is usually when there's pressure for marriage, and you went through something not a lot of people have to go through, and it's really painful, which is divorce. So what advice do you give to someone who is thinking about marriage, and what did you say to your boys when they came to you and said, Mom, I think this is the one, I want to marry her?
When my boys came to me, they obviously wanted me to know her and get to know her and meet her. But by then, I had let my kids go. You know, that's the key to being a good mom, is to know when they're ready to take the step and make their own decisions. And even as little kids, you got to let them start making their own decisions. And then you're there. You know, you don't give them a broad amount of room, but you give them a little. Like, for instance, I'd say, look, these are the rules, the kind of clothes you're going to wear. But then they could match. So what if they didn't match one another? They looked awful, and they came down the steps, and I'd wonder, these kids are colorblind, I think. But what's it matter? You know, let them pick and choose what they want to do in a framework, you know, and that's what I did throughout their lives. So by the time they were in college and interested in girls and looking for one to choose, sometimes they called me. They asked me what my advice would be, but the key was that they find somebody that they were going to love and respect totally, and that would be a really fine mom. That was key for them. And they both, the ones that are married, wanted an at-home mom. I think it was reaction. I didn't have one. My kids are going to have one. I don't know, but they, interestingly enough, I just love my daughter-in-laws. You know, they're just great people and fantastic moms, and really balance my sons extraordinarily well. So they made good calls. They made good calls. But it's interesting. That's one of the keys about compensating for not having a dad in the home, is you want your children to know what it is to be a good dad and to be a good husband. And so you have to expose them to families that are whole, you know, really good families that you really love. My brother and sister-in-law Phyllis were just great examples, and they had, you know, 5 kids, and they were beating each other up just like my kids beat each other up, and it was just a natural fit for us. And my youngest son became such close friends with his cousin Anton, and so I'd constantly take them down. It was 4 hours south of where I lived, and drop Stuart off at our halfway point in Charlottesville, a bookstore, and they would take Stuart, or I would take Anton. But I'd expose Stuart to a wonderful family. And I remember Phyllis called me once and said, I apologize, I was yelling at Stuart this weekend. I mean, the kids were bothering the little one. And I said, Stuart loves your house, and that's why. You treat him like he's one of yours, you know? This is what it's about. So my children were able to learn what is a strong man. I was fortunate enough to put them in single-sex schools, so they had male teachers. That gave them some exposure to strong men, you know? I did everything I could to make certain they had that experience and that knowledge that they would have learned if there was a dad in the home, but they didn't have that. And then I made certain that they had as good a relationship with their dad as they could. And that's the second chapter, is moms have to realize, single moms, that no matter how bad it is, no matter how badly you feel, don't share that with the boys, or your children. Don't hear you talk badly about their father, because this is the second most important person and the most important male in their lives. And if you can't give them a dad in their home, as I decided, I'm giving them a dad in their life. I'm going to do everything I can by never bad-mouthing their dad, never talking against him in any way, and giving him a chance to see them as often as possible, and actually to say good things about them. He was a great tennis player. And so I made a chance, they were talking about it, I said, let me tell you what an unbelievable athlete your dad was. It wasn't 24 hours I didn't hear those boys telling their friends, you know, my dad was a great athlete. Give them a reason to be proud about their dad so that they can have that bond, because that has to contribute enormously to have that relationship with their dad. And just to finish that part of the story, my son, Billy, my oldest, had a son, and he named him after his dad. And my first reaction was, your dad, huh? Don't you remember who is, you know, all those natural reactions that we do as women who ended up raising the children, were divorced. And you just, you know, sometimes you want to say something, but it's always best not to.
So I want to talk about Stuart for a minute.
Yes.
And I don't know if I'm biased because I'm the younger sibling, so maybe I think it's interesting, but even the excerpts in the book that he writes are so moving, and he's in college now.
Yes, he
and
is.
you spent a really long time making them your top priority. So what happens when the last one leaves and you have your empty nest and now it's all about you again?
You know, you worry every day. The last one is your baby, you know, and you think, okay, I wonder if he can do this without me, you know. And so you talk to him a lot and all, but you need to let him go. And he was ready to be on his own to see if he could do it, you know. He and I are very close, and he was making some bad decisions, as most teenagers do, but you have to let him go. You have to then explain to them why I had those rules that you're now breaking, and why that is really important to me. I feel that if you, in those younger years, can really pick and choose the rules. Decide what your values are. What are the things most important to you that you want to instill in your children? And then enforce those rules. Enforce them so that they know, my golly, she keeps fighting for these things. It must be important to her. It tells them these are the things that you want and you're willing to fight, that they put in their lives. So it must be extremely important, because if you back away from those things and suggest that, you know, okay, this time you can do it, not to worry, they're going to think it's not that big of a deal. And so that's where I did. I did what I could until they got into their high school years. I let them know the rules. I enforced those rules. So when they went, they knew what I thought they should do. They knew exactly the path I thought they should be on. And they bounced around. Stuart, like the rest of them, bounced around here and there, but they came back and are just have made some terrific choices in their life. And I'm nothing but enormously proud that they are as well grounded in look for the right qualities in the women that they date and eventually marry, and the decisions they make about their own careers in relationship to their families. What it is that is important to them, interestingly enough, is what it is that was important to me.
Well, they had a good role model. That's how it happened.
They did, and she enforced. She was there, you know, as you say, just making certain they that they understood what authority is about and what is expected of them by being part of a family that had standards and expectations.
I want to shift gears just for a minute here.
Please do.
You were Treasurer of the United States in the early 80s,
Yes.
youngest person to ever hold the position at 32, and you were a woman. Looking back at that time, how has the role of women in politics sort of changed over the years?
Dramatically. You know, I entered politics through the back door because I knew I couldn't come through the front. I became an expert. I was an accountant, and I became an expert in federal election law. And it was a new law, so none of the politicians had a clue. And they knew they didn't want to do any time, so they were happy to have somebody say, okay, guys, you can't do this, you can do that. But there was still no acceptance of women who, you know, I couldn't have been the political director. There was no way I would get that job. And so, but I could be the accountant. I could be the guy worrying about the laws and working with the attorney. And so I learned the business. I became a controller. Well, as a controller, I had to talk to the pollsters, the political guys, all aspects, the chairman of the campaign, about their budgets, how things were moving. And I really learned the whole everything about politics. I learned by being in charge of the money. And so that was what was exciting. And then after a couple years, you saw more and more women. My brother Pat, as conservative as he is, he's the one that called me and said he wants me to run my campaign. You know, and everyone says, well, you know, he's so right-wing. But interestingly enough, he asked me to run his campaign. And if he had said, can you help, I would have been happy. I'd have done anything he wanted, but he wanted me to be in charge of it. And as such, I did television. The press was calling and saying, we need somebody to be a spokesperson. And I asked Pat, and he said, you do it. So I went out there, and I was on television a lot. And there was a cabal, if you like, of conservative men who met, and our advisors and some consultants and major donors, and they met, and they said, she can't do the television. This is ridiculous. It looks like a mom and pop shop, you know. You have to have, you know, one of us on television. And so I went to Pat and I said, look, I won't do it if you think it's hurting you. And you know what he said? He said, you know what the media is saying? This is Kennedy-esque. You know, it was the idea that Democrats had more come around to the idea of women and family and all of that working together. And it was the conservatives that really had a little bit of a problem giving me that high of a role. But it never bothered me. It never bothered me. My message to women in the business world is, if you want to look for problems, if you want to look for people who are trying to keep you down or hesitating to promote you because you're a woman or you feel this, you're spending too much time on it. Because, you know, for every person who thinks that way, everyone has a prejudice against something or other. Some people don't like blondes. Some people like blondes. They prefer them. Some people have a problem with people at different weight levels. I mean, it's just all crazy, and you just can't worry about those things. I have found if you do your job and you do it well, I personally don't care what you look like. I don't care anything about your background. I'm going to carry you right with me because you make me look good. And that's what you should focus on, doing a really good job and letting other people know you're really willing, you have the right attitude, and you want to be there to help this team move forward. And they'll bring you right with you, I guarantee you, because that's what they want.
They want someone who can perform and do their job.
Exactly. And amazingly enough, when that happens, the women just keep going higher and higher, don't they?
I know that happens, right?
Absolutely.
Sunday is a very big day for mothers all over the world. It's Mother's Day. Are you going to celebrate?
I certainly am. My youngest is home right now, and I have remarried. I married 2 years ago, and so I expect we'll be doing something, but this book is my real celebration. It was spent all last year. It's written from the heart, and it's for moms everywhere, and I'm just hoping that it gets into the hands of all moms that can use it, or at least many of them, people that can use it, both single and married, and even parents, fathers, single dads. It's a book that has a lot of good ideas. It's a great fun read, and it's being sold as a Mother's Day gift. So I'm certainly hoping that it gets to people that will be able to learn something from it and have a good laugh at my expense.
Well, I already told you how much I enjoyed reading it. So thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
You're welcome. Delighted.
Well, no better time to pick up Bay and her boys other than Mother's Day. Whether you're young or old, married, single, male or female, it doesn't matter. Trust me, you will get something out of this book. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marisa, Krystian with IBTimesTV.